Wow, good morning. Nice to see. I didn't think there'd be anybody on. I thought I'd be the first one. Did you say, I hope you didn't say Tachelon this morning. It's Pesach Sheni. Did you all have matzahs for breakfast? Anybody got anything good to say? There's a very interesting, very interesting Meshech Chochmah in this week's parsha. Beautiful, beautiful Meshech Chochmah. A leket shekhamper. Maybe at the end of the year, it's good. Okay. One of the Spinkers used to ask, we don't have two Rosh Hashanahs. If somebody doesn't manage to make Rosh Hashanah, doesn't hear Shiur from Rosh Hashanah, there's no replacement like a month later. There's no two Shavuos, there's no two Sukkos. Pesach, there's a replacement. You don't manage it the first time, you get it the second time. Why? Maybe go and answer. Why is Pesach the only Yom Tov where you get a second chance if you didn't manage to get it right the first time? Pesach Sheni. Anybody got an answer?
Hello.
Hello, good morning, Moshe. Moshe.
Morning. I got muddled up. Moshe got muddled up with what's it called in the meeting I did. Anyway.
Why is Pesach the only Yom Tov you get a second chance? No other Yom Tov you get a second chance. You don't hear. Whose your site is it?
Reb Meir.
Reb Meir who?
The Tana, Reb Meir.
It says your site, Pesach Sheni?
Yeah. They say it's Pesach Sheni.
Did anyone see what's his name made a proper Pesach Seder? Ali Beer. Did anyone see that?
Oh, because he was.
Yeah, he was in a whatever it was in an induced coma over Pesach.
Yeah. Oh, because he missed Pesach first time.
Yes, they made a proper full Seder.
There's no minutes, no mitzvah to.
Why shouldn't? I don't know. Why not?
Nothing wrong, but I hope he didn't make any brachas. No, I should show this face of.
Oh, I think he went through it, but I think he missed out Hashem's name.
Oh.
So he just went. It's very interesting now. Well, it's probably the first time in modern history that people have actually missed the Pesach. Like a lot of people.
I heard about one person that woke up from his coma and said to his wife, I don't want to say the name, might be nice. How are you going to manage Pesach on your own? I feel bad that you're going to have the storm on your own. He didn't realize it was already like a few weeks after Pesach.
That's what this guy had.
This is he had.
He thought it was still time. Right. Yeah.
No, I have to say that it's an interesting thing that Pesach has a compensation with Pesach. Nothing else does. Okay. We're up to Daf Samech Gimel Amud Beis. I have to say that those who came on at 10 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, there's lots to do. It's a big chizuk for me. I get chizuk from it. It's a Kiddush Hashem. Rashi in this week's parasha. Kiddush Hashem is when a person is mekayem mitzvahs of Hashem in front of other Yidden. Okay. We're up to Samech Gimel Amud Beis, about 15 lines from the top. We're finished basically with our Gadata, and now we're going to do the halachas. The Mishnah tells us biris is Torah, and a woman is allowed to wear it on Shabbos. Kovol is Tomei, and a woman is not allowed to wear it on Shabbos. So the Mishnah is telling us about two separate items of clothing, biris and kovol. There's more to discuss what the difference between these two items of clothing are, and two halachas about each one. A biris is Torah, meaning it cannot become Tomei, it's not Mekabel Tumah. And a kovol can become a tumah. The Gemara will discuss this. Furthermore, a biris, one is allowed to wear on Shabbos, the kovol or not. So the Gemara discusses each one by itself. First, biris. Biris tehora. Omar Yehuda biris zuet soda. It is a bracelet. Mosiv Abiyisa biris tehora. V'yetz bo b'Shabbos. You're allowed to wear it on Shabbos, and it's Torah. Ilu et soda, a bracelet t'meoi. Hochi kama answers the Gemara. Biris tachas et soda imedes. A garter does, a biris is a garter, it does what a bracelet does. In the olden days, women would wear bracelets at the end of their sleeves that if they would lift up their hand, that their sleeve shouldn't roll down and unreveal the elbow. So they would put a bracelet at the end of the cuffs, like a bit nowadays, like an elasticated cuff. If you lift up your hand, then your sleeve shouldn't roll down. So that's what bracelets served for in the older days. Bracelets were used to keep the what's the thing over your hand? So your cuffs from rolling down and revealing your elbow. The same thing. It's a biris was a garter. It was used over the stocking, and it was made for that the stocking shouldn't roll down. Yosef, Ravin, Rav Huna, Kameda, Rav Yirmiyah. Ravin and Rav Huna were sitting in front of Rav Yirmiyah. The Yosef, Rav Yirmiyah, Kamanamnim, and Rav Yirmiyah was dozing off. The Yosef, Ravin, the Kaoma, Biris, Be'achas, Kvolim, B'shtayim. The only difference between biris and kvolim is that biris is on one leg and kvolim is on two. That means biris is a garter for one leg and kvolim are garters for two legs. It's quite difficult to understand why he would say such a thing, because then why would one be tummy and not tummy? And why would one be permitted on Shabbos and forbidden? But that's how he understood it. That biris is one leg, kvolim is two. Both of them are both legs, biris and kavolim. But the difference between the biris and kavolim is no more that both of them are garters, except that biris is a normal garter, while kavolim is garters with chains in between. The more will explain in a moment why. Women used to put garters around the stockings that they shouldn't roll down, and then they would add a chain from one to the other, forcing them not to take big steps. And that is kavolim. And therefore it is mekabel tumah. Says the Gemara. The shalsheles shaboy mashvei mona. Just because it's got a chain, that makes it come mekabel tumah. And the Rishonim explain as follows. For something to become mekabel tumah, it has to be a keli. This is something which we're going to have again and again and again. For something to be mekabel tumah, it has to be a keli. Something is only considered a keli if a human being has direct pleasure from it. That means if a person gains from it directly, then a person becomes mekabel tumah. These garters were not mekabel tumah. Why were they not mekabel tumah? Because they were used for something else, meaning they were not an ornament for the person, nor were they a piece of clothing. Rather, they were something to keep a piece of clothing in its place. And that's not important enough to be mekabel tumah. And that's why biris is not mekabel tumah, because it's not actually serving a human being. It's serving the garter, it's serving the stockings which serve the human being. A keli for a keli is not mekabel tumah. It's a very important halacha to remember. We had this, I don't know if you remember, that if you've got a pot, and at the end of the handle of the pot there's a ring, which you can then use the ring to hang the pot on a hook or something. I've seen sometimes pots with rings at the end of the handle. Those rings are not mekabel tumah, because they don't serve a human being. The rings serve the pot, which serves a human being. Anything with a keli for a keli is not mekabel tumah, and that's why a biris is not mekabel tumah. Asks the Gemara if it's not mekabel tumah just because it's got a chain between the two of them. That should be a reason to be mekabel tumah. Says the Gemara. You might think of Shmuel ben Achmeni. Don't want Shmuel ben Achmeni Rabbi Yochanan. How do you know that something makes a sound? That even sound is mekabel tumah. Does anybody remember why we used this Gemara previously, not so long time ago? What did we learn from this halacha? Remember that a bell is mekabel tumah. Why is a bell mekabel tumah? Because it makes a sound. That a bell is mekabel tumah. So you see that a bell is mekabel tumah. When you have chains between the two legs, those chains make a sound. So well, no, you need it for the sound. The kovid ma'isa, and it does the ma'isa of the sound. Over here, what is the chain working for? So the Gemara says, "Hachanami kovid ma'isa." There was a family in Yerushalayim, gases. They would take very big steps. Or the besulim, which is a piece of skin in the mokim elbow, would fall out because they did big steps. Also, them kavolim, they made for them these garters. These chains served a very important purpose. They would make them not take big steps. Some say the chains were small chains, and therefore they could not take big steps. Others say that the chains would rattle and make a lot of sound. And because they would make a lot of noise, it would remind the women, don't take a big step. Either way, either the sound of the rattling of the chain would remind them not to take big steps, or technically it was impossible for them to take big steps because the chains were very short chains. And either way, they didn't take big steps, and then the basulis would not fall out. So therefore, it came out that these chains actually served the proper purpose. Yomi woke up. You're right. So very, very briefly. The Mishnah tells us biris. Biris is a garter. It's a piece of elastic, a piece of rope which you put around the stocking. It's not mekabel tumah. Why is it not mekabel tumah? Because it's a keli for a keli. It doesn't directly serve a human being. It serves something else which serves a human being, and therefore it's not mekabel tumah. A woman is allowed to work with it on Shabbos. The Rishonim, we said two explanations. One is they wouldn't take it off because they were scared that the stocking would fall down and it would reveal the legs. Out of tznius, they won't take it off. Alternatively, they won't take it off because it wasn't an adornment. It wasn't something beautiful that they would show off. So therefore, she was allowed to wear it on Shabbos. Kevolim, which is exactly the same thing, just with the added chain in between, is mekabel tumah because it's a keli. Why is it a keli? Because it served a purpose that they shouldn't take big steps. So it was directly serving the human being, so it was mekabel tumah. And you're not allowed to walk out it on Shabbos because the actual chain was considered carrying. Now we're coming to a new topic. The halacha is, for something to be mekabel tumah, it has to be a keli. Does anybody remember what's the minimum size for a piece of cloth? Very good. It has to be 3 fingers by 3 fingers, as Ben pointed out. It has to be 3 fingers by 3 fingers. Now, the Rishonim, this Gemara is going to discuss a piece of cloth less than 3 by 3 and tell us that it's still mekabel tumah. And Tis gets all upset. How can such a thing be possible? We had, as Ben told us, it can't be such a thing that something less than 3 is by 3 mekabel tumah. I'm only going to go through this Tis and say this idea of Tis once. After we're going to leave this Tis aside. Tis basically answers there's a difference between a piece of cloth which was made, let's say, cut out of a big piece of cloth or made without specific intention. Then unless it's 3 by 3, it's not an important piece of cloth. But if it's made specifically, let's say a garter is very long, so it's more than 3 by 3 overall. But let's say you've got something which you need, which is a plaster. It's less than 3 by 3. If it was made for a specific purpose, actually a garter would be a good example. It's less than 3 by 3 because it's there's no 3 cent, there's no thread spoils anywhere. So the halacha is then it is mekabel tumah. When is something not mekabel tumah? If it's less than 3 by 3, if it comes from a bigger cloth, or it doesn't have a specific purpose. But if you sew something specifically for a specific need, less than 3 by 3, it is mekabel tumah. Says the book. Also, how do I know that something which is woven, even if it's a tiny bit, shu tomei, mitzitz? The tzitz was one of the clothes of the Kohen Gadol. How wide was the tzitz? Does anybody know? How wide was the tzitz? It went on the forehead, but how wide was it? It was very long. It was from ear to ear.
2 fingers, no?
Very good, 2 fingers. So we see that less than 3 by 3 and it was mekabel tumah. Says the Gemara, was the tzitz at all woven? The tzitz was not made out of a cloth anyway. It was made out of metal, and metal doesn't require a size. Even a needle is mekabel tumah. So you can't say to me, I've got a proof that something less than 3 by 3 is mekabel tumah from the tzitz, because the tzitz was never woven. And says the Gemara brings a price. Because of all of the base shittin, it had on 2 rows, Yud K. The Gemara means Yud K Vav K, the whole name of Hashem. The Gemara does not want to spell out the whole name because of Kedushas Hashem. The Mal of Kedush Lamed Lamato. Over here we have a huge machlokes in Rishonim what the tzitz look like. Here I'll bring you in the Sifta. They actually bring 4 opinions as to exactly what they look like. The problem was that tzitz said Kodesh LaHashem. Kodesh LaHashem, holy to Hashem. The word Hashem is more important than the word Kodesh. So they wanted to give it preference. How can you give it preference? So they would have a system where what they would do is, they would show, here, let me just show it. Here, can you see? I don't know if you can see, so it's not such clear. One opinion is that the Kodesh Hashem, this is Rashi's opinion. Rashi's opinion, the word Kodesh on top, can you see or you can't see? If you can't see, shake it, not so good. Rashi has opinion Kodesh was on top, La Hashem underneath. He says you can't put, La Hashem on top and Kodesh underneath. Try this one, I wonder if this was any better. Rashi says they would put the word La Hashem on top and Kodesh underneath. Teresa says it looked really weird that way, because then it said Hashem La Kodesh, which doesn't make any sense at all. So Teresa's opinion was that you did it you did it like this: Kodesh La Hashem, where you wrote Kodesh and then La Hashem afterwards. Again, let me try and explain it without the pictures. If you look, the point is like this: you wanted to have on the tzitz the words Kodesh La Hashem. But you can't have Kodesh on top and Hashem underneath, because you're putting Hashem underneath Kodesh, which is not covered for the word Hashem. So Rashi says, indeed, they put the name of Hashem on top and Kodesh underneath. Jason says on that, then it looked really strange, because you've got the word Shem, Kodesh, which doesn't make any sense. It's Kodesh La Hashem. So Jason says what it did was that word Kodesh on the lower line, and then Hashem on the higher line. Okay. This was to solve the problem of how to do the code for Hashem. And then the Gemara brings another Tana. But Omar Belezer Bab Yosi, and even Isabi Yomi, but Belezer Bab Yosi was a very, very great Tana. But what he did was the Romans would have to ask him for help from various endeavors. So as a reward, they said to him, you can go into our treasure houses and look around. And he went into the treasure houses and he saw a lot of things. Many times the Gemara quotes him as saying, I went and I saw. He saw, for example, the Avoin, he saw the Kapiras, the Kapiras and the Parichas. And one of the other things he saw the tzitz. Because of Kodesh Hashem b'shittu achas, he said, I saw the word Kodesh Hashem was written in one row. Regardless, we have an argument exactly how the word Kodesh Hashem appeared on the tzitz. Did it appear in 2 rows, in 1 row? Did it appear which word came first? But either way, what was the tzitz made out of? What's clear from this price? What was the tzitz made out of? It was made out of gold. So how can the Dimi come on and tell me that piece of cloth which is very narrow is Kodesh? Is Mekabel Tumah from the tzitz? The tzitz was never made out of cloth. Answers the Gemara, Kisalik Rav Dimi changed his mind. And he said, Kisalik Rav Dimi l'na'ador shalach, he sent a message. Dvom shamarti lachem, where I told you, Tosei biyod, I made a mistake. I made a mistake in telling you that from the tzitz we can learn that it's got tumah. How do I know that an adornment, a jewelry, which is made out of metal, which is less than 3 tvachim is tumah, is from tzitz? From the words if I close the curtains, or we'll make the light better. That means there's 2 separate halachas. If it's an ornament, then we learn it out from the tzitz. If it's a cloth, we learn it out from a special pasuk oibeket. And now we're going to have a whole amud learning the halachas of this din. A whole long amud about this. Basically like this. If somebody was to ask you, I've got a piece of jewelry and it's very, very small. Is it mekabel tumah? What would you say to him? You'd say to him, yes. No, it is mekabel tumah, sorry. An ornament, which is very small, you say yes. How would you say yes? What's the proof? From the tzitz. The tzitz was very small. It was an ornament, mekabel tumah. If somebody said to you, I've got a very, very small piece of cloth, which I'm using, let's say, as a plaster. Is it mekabel tumah? And you say, yes. How do you know that? From the words, oibeged. So that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara goes through. So Dimi made a mistake only in comparing cloth to the tzitz. But halachically he made the mistake, meaning in both cases, when it's an ornament or a cloth, it is mekabel tumah. Says the Gemara, Ton Rabban, Ovik kolshu, the smallest piece of cloth which has been woven is tummy. V'tachshit kolshu, the smallest piece of ornament, tummy. Oy v'tachshit kolshu, if you've got a piece of ornament which is half metal, half woven, it's also tummy. Most of sakala beget, a sackcloth has got a chumba of a clothes, shetomim mishum orig, which is a very enigmatic statement, doesn't make any sense. We'll more discuss this later. Omarova, kol shu tomei, oi kol shu tomei, how do I know that? Me oi beget, the word oi is spared to tell me that it's tummy. Tachshit kol shu tomei, how do I know that? Mit sits, from the word sits. That's from the pasuk which says kol kli ma'isa, any, all tells me that it's tummy. So Tanzvach said to Rav, if you remember, there was a battle, the more discuss it a bit more later, that the Midyanim used their daughters to seduce Klal Yisrael to do Averos and Shittim. and 24,000 Yidden were killed until there was a big Magefa in Klal Yisrael, until Pinchas came along and they're killing Zimri and Cosby. He made such an impression that everybody did Shuvah and they stopped, and otherwise Magefa would have carried on. And what happened was Moshe Rabbeinu sent out an army to destroy Midian, and after they destroyed Midian, they brought back all the young girls and tremendous amount of wealth. And Moshe Rabbeinu said to them, how can you have done such a thing? And he got them to kill all the girls up to the age of less than the age of 3, and all males. And they divided out all the booty, all the sholol, all the spoils of the battle. Now there, Moshe Rabbeinu had to tell them the halachas of Tumah, because in the process of killing all the Midyanim, the halacha was the dead people made all the ornaments tummy. So we see there that everything became tummy, all the ornaments became tummy. So the Talmid Chacham said to Rava, that's talking about Tumas Meis. Now Tumas Meis is more chomor than all other tumas. Tumas Sheretz, for example, how long does it take to become Torah from Tumas Sheretz? Just by going to mikveh. Tumas Meis, you have to do Azor, Shlishi, V'Shvi. Omalei lo, Omalei lo, Bidon Ksif. Omalei, Goma, Keli, Mahosam. Top of Samach Dala, Domad Aleph. Keli, Mahosam, it's the Shova, Keli from there, to tell you that it is Tomei. Because it is Shova. The Gemara brings on the advice. Moisav Sakala Begach with Tomei Mishum Oig, it's Tomei because of woven. It says, we ought to beg lab oigu, our clothes not woven. Answers Lochikama, Moisav Sakala Beget. A sack is more Tomei than a piece of clothing. Afapishe Enoi Oig Tomei. Sack is always made out of hair from a goat. That is the definition. We talk about sack nowadays. You picture yourself a bin bag or laundry bag. When Chazal talked about the word sackcloth, they meant coarse thread, which was made out of the hair of a goat, right? And what they used to do is, normal clothes, they used to weave. The sackcloth was not woven, it was just braided. I've never sewn clothes, so I do not know much of the difference. But basically, weaving was a much more sophisticated manner of going crisscross of all the threads. But when it came to sackcloth, they never bothered to do it so well. All they used to do is just twist the threads together, and that was enough to make it into a sackcloth. So now, there's a chumrah that we have in sackcloth that you do not have regarding clothes, is that normal clothes are only tameh if they're woven. If you just twist, let's say you go outside and you've got your sheep and you pull off a few pieces of wool and you just twist the wool together and then you use it and then you want to know is it Mekabel Tumah? The answer is no, it's not Mekabel Tumah because it's not woven. But sackcloth, even though it's not woven, is Mekabel Tumah. It says, well, as we said, for something to Mekabel Tumah, it has to be useful. Poor people would take 3 hairs of a goat, and use it as a necklace. So they used to braid hairs of a goat, put it on a daughter, and that would be a necklace. And therefore we see that it has got some use. Sack. How do I know to include kilkili and the chabok? Those were straps which were used on a horse or donkey to make the burden not fall off. The kilkili went from the front of the donkey to the back of the donkey. The chabok went around the stomach of the donkey. The one that went from the front to the back was used that the burden shouldn't slip down when it was going up a hill, or shouldn't slip forward when it was going down the hill, up a hill, down the hill. The one which went around the donkey made sure that it shouldn't fall on either side. Here it's got a bit of a picture. I don't know how brilliant the picture would hold, but if you see over here, the kilkili was around the front to back to make sure that it did not come off too. And the chabok was around the donkey. Again, how do we know that these straps, which were made out of braided hairs of a goat, that they are tummy? We'll go about oisak. The oy is spare to tell it about. So if that's the case, I'll include every piece of string. That means measuring threads should also be tummy. Says the Gemara, Tamudim asak. But since the Torah uses the word sak, it has to be either spun or woven. So therefore, we learn from over here that for something to be tummy, it has to be either woven or spun. If it's not, then it's not mekabel tumah. So if you've got a thread which you use to measure things. Let's say, for example, a seamstress, a lady, she has a piece of cloth, a piece of wool, a long piece of wool, and she used that to measure people and to measure dresses and things like that. And she's tummy and she touches that string, then that string will not be tummy because it's not considered a beged. And now the Gemara says exactly the same drashas by mace. Right? This halachas was said by sheretz. Tumas sheretz if you touch a dead tortoise, let's say. Now we're talking about tumas mace if it touches a dead person. However, to include the straps of a donkey. I might include all strings, and I'll say like this: timei b'sheretz, timei b'mace. Just like it makes a tomei by sheretz, it's also doing tumah by a dead person. Just like it was metame by a sheretz. It was only metame if it was woven and spun. Also when it was metame by a dead person. It was only metame woven and spun. So then you should say to yourself that measuring threads will not be tummy by a dead person. Says, well, no, you can't learn it like that. Why? If the Torah was makeup, that a dead sheretz cannot be metame a thread, because after all, tumas sheretz is kal. How is tumas sheretz more kal than tumas mace? How is tumas sheretz more lenient than tumas mace? What way is tumas sheretz less chamor, less stringent than tumas mace? Because tumas sheretz you only need to go to mikveh. Tumas mace you have to do a whole procedure of having sprinkling on you the ashes of the paradum on the third day and the seventh day. So this is well, the whole drash he had before was by tumas sheretz. How do you know that this kula applies also by tumas mace? Hey, you make it tumas sheretz shikalo make it tumas mace shichamor. Talmud lema beged v'oy l'gzeir shavar. The Torah says the word beged v'oy by tumas sheretz, and it says beged v'oy by tumas mace. And we say like this: Ma beged v'oy amor b'sheretz l'timei l'tov v'org only if it's woven or spun. Beged v'oy amor b'mace l'timei l'tov v'org. Everything, even sackcloth, even sackcloth, and therefore by a sackcloth, by a sheret is also tomei. That only teaches you hair from a goat. Sometimes instead of using the hair of a goat, they would use the hair of the tail of a horse or the tail of a cow to make a sackcloth. The word oisak is spare. Again, we have four basic kinds of material. We have clothes which are properly woven, right? A piece of clothing, like a jacket. Then you have something made out of sackcloth. That was goat hair, which was just braided together into a sack. Then you have hair from a horse tail or a cow tail. It wasn't woven properly like a piece of clothing. It was made like a sackcloth. And then the least of them is just threads from wool or linen, which were not even spun or woven, and they were just used for measuring or for ropes and things like that. Regarding the first three, the Gemara gives us drashas that they are tomei, both if they touch a dead person or if they touch a dead sheretz. Regarding ropes, they are not tomei, not by a mace and not by a sheretz. And the Gemara uses it mostly from the Gzeir Shavar, from we learn one from the other, and we have Ribui. Says the Gemara, the word oy you use to teach us that ropes which are made out of woven fibers are tomei. Says more, that's before the Gzeir Shavar. Now the Gzeir Shavar, we don't need the word oy. How do I know by tumas mace all of these halachas? Says more, timei b'mace, timei b'sheretz. Just like we know by a sheretz, the hair from the tail of a horse or the tail of a cow has the same halacha as the hair from a goat. Also by tumas mace, the hair of a horse or a cow, the tail of a horse or a cow, has the same halacha as the hair from a goat. Says the Gemara, you can't learn. There's such a thing called a mamotzinu. Mamotzinu means, sometimes it's called a pinyanav, and sometimes it's called a mamotzinu. What is a mamotzinu or binyanav? Mamotzinu binyanav is as follows. If I tell you an halacha by a specific case, and I find another story which is similar, I can say, just like we see it there, we see it here. That means, we are told by Tumas Sheretz, the tumah of a dead sheretz, dead reptile, that the hair of a tail of a cow is tummy, if it's spun. Says the Gemara, it's logical to say, it's logical to assume, that if that is the halacha by Tumas Sheretz, it is logical to assume that by Tumas Meis, it should be the same, right? If I tell you by Tumas Sheretz, that the hair of a tail of a cow has got tumah, then by Tumas Meis, it is logical to assume that the halacha is the same. That's called a mamotzinu. Just like we find by A, we find by B. Or binyanav, I learn one from the other. If I tell one of my children, you can have a wafer, there's no reason why another child shouldn't say, well, if he gives me, he gave him, he gave me as well. So I'm also entitled to it. That's called a mamotzinu if we see by A. Now, if we find something unique by A, which there isn't by B, then the mamotzinu falls away. Says the Gemara, you can't compare. Tumas sheretz is meruba. Tumas meis is muetas. Why is Tumas erev meruba? Does anybody have a guess? Why is Tumas sheretz considered much more common than Tumas meis? Why is Tumas sheretz much more common than Tumas meis?
Come into contact with them more. You don't always come into contact with dead people.
Oh, that's what the Ran says. The Ran says like you come into contact much more with dead reptiles than you come into contact with dead people. But Rashi doesn't say like you, Moishi. What you said is the Ran, one of the Rishonim, but not what Rashi says. Rashi says the reason is there's a variety of tumas for which you go to mikveh that night. For example, if you touch a zov, a zovo, a yoledes, a metzora, or for example, tumas shechva zera, tumas sheretz. Tumas meis is unique. It's the only one that requires 7 days. So it's not so much that you come into contact with dead reptiles more than you come into contact with dead people. It's more that Tumas Erev is something which is very common because many kinds of tumas have that kind of halacha that you go to mikveh that night in your Torah. So says the Gemara, even though we see that halacha about Tumas Sheretz, you can't compare to Tumas Meis because Tumas Meis is much rare, much less common. It says the word beged void by sheretz, never beged void by meis. Ma beged void by sheretz. Also, davar bom is on a source, is on a pork and mice is. It's got the same halacha as a goat. Beged void by meis. Also, davar bom is on a source, is on a pork and mice is. It's got the same halacha as a goat. So Bekitz and the mice, the Gemara learns it all from Gzeir Shava. It says beged void, and we compare Gzeir Shava is if you have the same word in two or a similar word in two separate places, we compare the two halachas together. Does anybody remember the difference between Gzeir Shava and a Hekesh? Gzeir Shava and a Hekesh are two separate things. We're going to come to it later. It's Kedai to have it clear. Gzeir Shava is two separate topics in two separate places in the Torah. But one word is used in both places, a similar word. It says the word beged there. It says the word beged here. The Gzeir Shava, the fact that both words in the both places, it says the word beged, where do we have a very common Gzeir Shava? It's chamisha also, chamisha also. A lot of the halachas of Pesach and Sukkot are learned from each other because in both places the Torah says on the 15th. So we do a Gzeir Shava. A Hekesh is when two topics are mentioned in one pasuk. If one pasuk mentions two halachas, for example, the halacha that you mustn't touch a zov and the halacha you mustn't touch a niddah, if the two halachas are said in the same pasuk, since they're said next to each other, that teaches us that halachas are similar. So that's Gzeir Shava, that's Hekesh. Now, regarding Gzeir Shava, we have a very, very big machlokas. Does the Gzeir Shava need to be spare? That means these words, which you learn the Gzeir Shava from, do they need to be superfluous words, and then you can learn the Gzeir Shava, or even if not? The Gemara in Zvachim discusses at great length. And there's 3 levels in spare. Sometimes the words are spare in both places. Sometimes they're spare in only one of the places, and sometimes they're not spare in either places. So the Gemara now discusses this a bit over here. Umufna, says the Gemara, the words must be spare. Why? Whenever the words are not spare, then we say as follows. If you have a kasha, we get rid of the Gzeir Shava. We don't learn the Gzeir Shava. If you don't have the kasha, then we do learn the Gzeir Shava. It says the Gemara, Umufna must be spare. You can ask as follows. Sheretz is much more chomo. Because how much do you need of a sheretz to become tummy? If you touch a dead tortoise, how much do you need to touch to become tummy? The size of a lentil. And if you touch a dead body, how much do you need that it should be tummy? Does anybody know? If you touch a dead body, how big piece of a dead body? No, it has to be the size of a kazais. It has to be the size of a kazais. So therefore, we see that sheretz is much worse. Says the Gemara, lie. Indeed, it is mufna. Afnu mufna. Lie means indeed. Mechti sheretz is kash shechva zera. Dichsev isha shetetz v'nu shechva zera. V'samech le isha shiga b'chol sheretz. The Torah says together a hekesh. The topic of shechva zera and the topic of sheretz. V'ksiv b'shechva zera b'chol beged b'chol lo yashir lo shechva zera. The Torah tells us that halachos of beged and oiba shechva zera. Beged word because of achmod v'sheretz lomali. Why did the Torah say the word beged word? Says the Gemara, it must be spared. It's only spared on one side. You can learn that you can't ask any questions. There is a man that in order for Shabbos to be so strong that we do not ask any questions on it, it has to be spare on both places. And if in both places the word is spared, then we can learn the Shabbos and you can't ask any questions. But if the Shabbos is not spare in one of the places, then we're entitled to question it. And over here, if it's only spare in one place, we should question it. Says the Gemara, the base, the word beged and oy is also spared by mace. Mechti mace is kashta shechva zera. It's got a hekesh shechva zera. Dirsit. But the Gabachot with nefesh oisha shetetz with the shechva zera. The pasuk says in the same breath that you're not allowed to go to the Beis Hamikdash if you've touched a dead person, or if shechva zera, if someone has come out of you. So therefore, the Torah says in the same breath, "Uksiv v'shechva zera v'chol beged v'chol oy beged word kos v'achmod b'beis lomoli shmabidol afduye." So basically, the words beged v'oy by mace and beged v'oy by sheretz or spare, since they're spare, because in both places we do it a hekesh to shechva zera. Therefore, since they're spare, we learn exer Shabbos, and therefore the maskoda we learn both by sheretz and by mace that any clothes which are woven, or any sackcloth made out of the hair of a goat, or made out of the tail of a cow of a horse, all those become tummy, even if they're only used as straps for the cow or the donkey that the burden shouldn't fall off. When is it not mekabel tumah? Only something which is not woven and spun. For example, something which is used as a measuring, or something which is used only as a rope, as a cord, not a rope. A cord is not woven and spun, and that is not mekabel tumah. Now the Gemara's got a little bit of a gadata. Going back to the story of Midian, after they won the battle, so then what happened was they brought a korban to Hashem. If you remember, Klal Yisrael did a terrible aveira in Shittim, that they were seduced by the non-Jewish girls. Moshe Rabbeinu told them to go to war. They went to war, 24,000 Yidden, went to 12,000 stayed at to Dav, 12,000 to Dav, and went to war, and they went out and killed Midian, and not a single Yiddish soldier was killed. And the minute the officers of the army brought a korban, it says, "V'nakiv es korban Hashem ish Hashem motza klizov et sodov et somet tabas ogel b'chumos." They all brought all the different jewelry which they captured in the spoils of the battle. They brought as a korban. Normally, ogil means earrings. Here it means a metal plate which was designed exactly the same shape as the breasts, and it was placed over the dadin, and that was a jewelry which the goyim used to wear, and they brought it as a korban to Hashem. Chumos, so it's fushla beis harechem. It was a ornament which went over the mokim elvo. It was a special kind of ornament which went over the mokim elvo. Pashtus, it was a meiser's nus that they would wear special jewelry there to attract men to the most elvodika place. There is a marshal that says, on the contrary, they used to use it as a way to protect themselves, that they should not be taken advantage of. Okay, so that's what it was. Omar Yosef, Yochi. If so, that's why the Targum says mechoich. The Targum says regarding chumos, the word mechoich. Dova maybe they take gichuch. It's something which brings laughter, mockery, lewdness. So therefore, that's why chumos, which is mokim elbow, is considered mechoich because it brings mockery. You can work out from the pasuk. Chumos is Rashi Tevas kan mokim zimor. This is the place of znus. He got annoyed. Omar Nachman Omar Abba Ba'avo, Omar and Moshe Yisrael, Shem Chazaltim Kulkulchem Marishan. I know why you're bringing a korban, because you all were nichshal in znus. Omuloi ve'nifkad menu ish. Not a single person did an avera. We went to war, and nobody was chas v'shalom nichshal in any avera with these women. Omar en ken kapor lama. So why are you bringing this korban as a kapor? Obviously, you must have done something bad. Otherwise, why are you bringing a kapor? Omuloi imidei avera yotzanu midei himo lo yotzanu. We didn't do any averas. We weren't mezana with them. But a Maisa, who knows if one of us had a Hiru Avera? And therefore, if we did a Hiru Avera, we brought a korban for the Hiru Avera. There's an interesting thesis. Bottom thesis. This asks a very strong question. That the halacha is the fast Torah is permitted during battle. When it's during battle, one is allowed to take any non-Jewish woman and take as a wife. If that is the case, none of these women were forbidden to them. If none of the women were forbidden to them, in what way could they be nichshal in Hiru? What is Hiru? Hiru is chas shalom, if a person sees a woman that he's not allowed to be with, and how he thinks about it. But all these women were mutter to them. If they're mutter to them, where could they possibly shaykh Hiru? So Tesis brings a one kedushin that you're only allowed to take one yefas and not two. So there's a chashash that one of them might have thought about more than one woman, and then they would be nichshal in Avera. Miyad v'nakim v'skom on Hashem, told to be a bishmor. Why did they need a kapor? Well, to subtitle based off of the page, they enjoyed looking at znus and the women, and since they enjoyed it, therefore they needed to do a kapor. The pasuk lists out all the different ornaments. Some of them are ornaments worn on the outside, like the ring. Right? Tabas is worn on the finger. And some of these ornaments we said were placed on the dad and on the breast and placed on Mokim Zimo, on the Mokim Elvo. So why does the Pasuk mention them all in one breath? The Mashor adds that the Gemara's question is deeper than that, is that why mention the ornaments at all? Just say all the ornaments without listing what they were brought as a korban. To teach you, a person might think to himself, I look at a woman's finger, I'm not doing anything wrong. No, you should be aware that by a person looking where he shouldn't, even if it's somewhere where it doesn't look so bad, it's only a finger, it's only a face, it's something, what does it matter? No. If a person looks there, he gets punished for looking where he shouldn't, as if he was looking somewhere with the Mokim Elvo itself. So that's why the Pasuk mentions altogether to compare the severity of it. A person shouldn't think that it's not so bad to look at a woman if I'm not looking at somewhere which is immodest. So this is where we're going to get up to, which was Sunday. It's actually quite a new sugya. Again, different things that women are allowed to wear. It's a lot about shetels, those who hold it as a shetel. I just want to say there's a very, very interesting Meshech Chochmah Parshas Emoy. We come to the mitzvah of Leket Shekhampeh, which is mentioned in this week's Parsha, in between the Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah and the Yom Tov of Rosh Hashanah. And the Meshech Chochmah says very, very powerful words. He says like this, it says, if you were to make Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur at the end of the summer or the end of the winter, when would you choose? Now you must remember, we don't live in an agricultural society, so it's not really so, it doesn't mean so much to us. But in the olden days, in the winter, farmers, which most people worked as farmers, were bored right through winter. The Rambam already says that during the winter, everybody would sit and learn all winter because there's nothing else to do. You couldn't plant, you couldn't sow, you couldn't harvest, there's nothing to do. In the summer, people work day and night, gathering in the harvest. So in the summer, says the Meshech Chochmah, Yidden and Goyim were basically the same. Everybody working in the fields. In the winter, that's the main difference between Yidden and Goyim. That the Goyim would spend the winters drinking and getting shikha, and the Yidden would go to learn in the Beis Medrash. So if you chose to put Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, would you put it at the end of the winter after a whole 6 months of learning? Or would you put it at the end of the summer after the Yidden have been in the fields for 6 months, working with almost no difference to going? Says Meshech Chochmah, I would have put it at the end of the winter, because that's when Christ have got the most chusim. Yet the Torah puts it at the end of the summer. Says the Meshech Chochmah, why is it? The answer is because there's one mitzvah which the Yidden do in the summer which the Goyim don't, and that is to give leket shikha. They drop harvest for other people to enjoy. And that is unique to Klal Yisrael, because when you drop the leket shikha, we've learned this before, we'll learn it again, you're not allowed to choose who you give it to. If you've got your best friend is a poor man, and he's going to come in a few hours' time, and your worst enemy is a poor man, and he's coming now, or you're allowed to say to the enemy of yours, don't take it now, I'm saving it for something else. No, you have to leave it in the field. The ability to give without getting anything back, no thanks, no recognition, not even being able to choose, is, he says, unique to Klal Yisrael. And that zchus is so great that makes Klal Yisrael be zeiche in din. It makes it, when it comes to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, after a summer of people doing chesed to others who are strangers, they're zeiche in din. It's unbelievable. I was just saying to my family this morning, my brother, he hasn't seen my parents in over a year. He's in London, and he couldn't get a rental car. So he called up somebody, do you have a car rental? Do you know any car rental companies open? So he said, no. I'll ask somebody else. Meanwhile, a third Yid who he doesn't even know said, I've got a couple of cars, take one of mine. So he took a really, really fancy car. He's never driven a car like this before in his life, from London to Manchester yesterday and drove back. He was telling me about it this morning. Imagine a total stranger gives him a very expensive car. Take it. I'm sure you all know hundreds of such stories. And he says, well, that's something unique to Leket Shikha Peah. That's really the muscle of Leket Shikha Peah. Where a person gives away produce, you drop the produce, and then what happens is anybody can help themselves. You can't choose who's going to take it. That's chus, says the Be'er Shechach, is so great that we are zeich and imid bedin. It's a very important message. We talk about everybody's worried about all the different sorrows that there are. The person knows that doing chesed to people, especially when it is difficult, especially when it can be challenging, a person's frustrated and everything else, that should make us all succeed, that no harm should come. Actually, the Shechach brings, if you can look inside, brings a medrash. The medrash says the word peah means a remainder. And the medrash brings a gzir shava. We just had the word gzir shava. That just like peah, when a person does peah, Hashem will make sure that he will always remain. It's a play on the words. Just like you put a remainder in your field, Hashem will make sure that you will also be a remainder, meaning that you will never be lost. A person will always have success. It's always a wonderful, wonderful Shabbos. And as I said in the beginning, I get a lot of chizuk. I know that Friday morning is a busy time and everybody else thing and getting up, whatever. And Shkoch, with Hashem, will start on Sunday from the Mishnah Daf Samach Daled on the base. Have a very, very good Shabbos. Anybody got any kashas, any questions, any shilas? No. Very good. Okay, have a very good Shabbos. Shkoch.
I always wonder.
Yes.
When there's as a kohen, when there's a dead animal on the street, is that an issue?
No issue whatsoever. Only dead animal. Any animal. Only dead people have an issue. By the way, I noticed one day I was going along Moor Lane. I don't know if you're aware. I'm sure there's no going there, but are you careful not to go on Moor Lane on the right-hand side of the road?
I won't walk there. We close the windows when we drive up.
Right, okay. You don't walk on Moor Lane on the right-hand side of the road because there's a cemetery right next to this trees coming.
We have the same problem. We have the same problem also on Langley Road near Agecroft Cemetery.
Right.
There's Yidden there as well, no?
No. The Jewish.
Oh, that's the just one's further away.
Right.
In London, there's a road. It's not Hoop Lane. Is it Hoop Lane?
Hoop Lane, yeah. Hoop Lane. The problem, yes. But you should know it's only dead people, no dead animals. You can walk with dead animals if you wish.
I thought goyim aren't a problem.
You're right. Goyim are not really a problem. We pass on that goyim are not metame, but they're only metame b'negir. You can't touch a dead goy. You can only go in the same room as a dead goy. But I suppose we're always choshesh. Maybe also there's machlokas. There's machlokas where they're dead goy is a problem. It's machlokas that annoying.
And you never know. There might be a yid buried in the north.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah.
Also, never know.
But you no problem with dead. You never no problem with dead animals if you're walking in the hill sometimes. That's not have a very, very good Shabbos. Moshe, I'm going to close it.
I'm going to do it now, yeah?
Right, very good. Okay, shkoch. Have a good Shabbos.
Yeah, Shabbos.